Guys, do you like Dave Ramsey and Dave Ramsey's approach to money problems, investing, and reaching your financial freedom? Let me know in the comments below what you think of Dave Ramsey's money advice. Is it for you? Is it not for you? Good? Bad? Let me know in the comments below. Now, for me, most of what Dave Ramsey's money advice is about, I like it. And I think it's exactly the type of advice that 90% of all Americans probably need. Most Americans are not seasoned investors who are really great with their money, right? The people that Dave Ramsey really reaches are people that have had some money struggles. So for most people, I think Dave Ramsey's money advice is pretty good. But for the more sophisticated investors, there are things about Dave Ramsey's money advice that's not so great. But that's not a bad thing. Listen, Dave Ramsey reaches probably millions of people every single day. So in my opinion, he's saying the right things to the vast majority of the people that he's talking to. So this video, guys, is in no way an attempt to bash Dave Ramsey. That's not my intent, because I really don't believe in discrediting or calling out other folks on my channel. But on this video, I do want to look at 4 specific things that Dave talks about a lot when he gives money advice. And these are 4 things that I disagree with. Now, let me say this up front. If you don't know who Dave Ramsey is, he's an American personal finance radio talk show host who answers callers' questions about their personal finances. And he's an author. He has a huge audience pretty much all around the world. And so as a very popular, well-known talk show personality, he's really gotten well known for his 7 baby steps. And his 7 baby steps to financial freedom are: step number 1, save an initial $1,000 for a starter emergency fund. Step number 2, pay off all of your debts except for your home as fast as you possibly can. Baby step number 3 is to complete your emergency fund to 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. Baby step number 4 is invest 15% of your money in mutual funds for your retirement. Baby step number 5 is save for your child's education. Baby step number 6 is to go ahead and pay off your home. Now, baby step number 7 is simply enjoy your money and give as much as possible to help other people. Now, those are what Dave calls the baby steps, and they've worked well for a lot of people for over 25 years. But keep in mind, guys, Dave did not invent these concepts. These are simple, basic concepts around money that Dave Ramsey just packaged really well. And he marketed them and still markets them even better. He's created a system out of basic common sense principles that average people can follow. So I have to give Dave Ramsey credit for that. And in my quest to get out of debt and reach my financial freedom, I actually used similar principles. Some of those same basic common sense principles that Dave talks a lot about. So that's some of the good. Now let's talk about some of the bad. There are these 4 things that Dave talks about a lot when he takes calls and gives his money advice. And these are the 4 things that I kind of want to push back on. Number 1, Dave recently had a caller call in and ask a question about the 4% rule. And after the caller asked the question, Dave sort of went ballistic about one of his Ramsey personalities or co-host for talking about and pushing the 4% rule. And Dave basically called the 4% rule silly, dumb, and wrong. And he might have had a few other choice words for the 4% rule also. Dave basically said no way to the 4% rule. Now, guys, here's what the 4% rule is. The 4% rule says that you can withdraw 4% annually from your nest egg, the money that you have set aside for retirement. You can withdraw 4% of that money the first year that you retire. And then all of the subsequent years after that, you can still withdraw the 4%, but adjust it for inflation. And studies show, many studies show, that if you do this, you will be safe. And 99% of the time, you'll never run out of your money for at least 30 years beyond your retirement. Well, Dave said, don't withdraw only 4%. He said instead, you need to be withdrawing 7 or 8% on an annual basis from your retirement nest egg. Guys, I could do a whole video, and many people on YouTube have done whole videos talking about why what Dave Ramsey said in that call was absolutely wrong, and that withdrawing 8% annually from your retirement savings is very dangerous. and could leave you without money if you're not careful, right? Withdrawing 8% of your money on an annual basis that you've put aside for retirement is incredibly risky. And frankly, it's kind of dangerous for most people because you're greatly enhancing the possibility that you'll ultimately run out of money long before 30 years is up. Study after study after study has shown that the 4% withdrawal rate, while conservative and erring on the side of caution, is the safest rate of withdrawal for your retirement money when you retire to ensure that you don't run out of money, or at least to ensure that you have money for the next 30 years. The 4% rule is conservative, and it's conservative for a reason. And that's because it takes into consideration the ebb and the flow of the stock market. Sometimes the stock market is way up for the year and you get an annual return of 18%, but sometimes the stock market is way down and you get an annual loss of 18%, right? It just depends. So because the stock market on a year-over-year basis can be so far down and so far up, the 4% rule, which is conservative, takes in consideration that. And therefore, the 4% rule considers risk, which Dave Ramsey agrees should be calculated and considered whenever you're talking about money. But however, when talking about the 4% rule, Dave sort of throws risk out the window and says you should have a 7 or 8% withdrawal rate on an annual basis from your nest egg. And that is being too risky for most people. Guys, if you get value from this video, please smash the like button below. And please consider subscribing to this channel if you're not already a subscriber. And also, don't forget to share this video with your friends and your family. Now, let's go to number 2. The second thing that I disagree with Dave about is baby step number 1. In baby step number 1, Dave says you should have an initial emergency fund of $1,000. Now listen, guys, in my opinion, that's too low. Yeah, back in 2005, $1,000 was probably okay for most people. Well, guys, nearly 20 years later, we've had something over the last 20 years, a little bitty thing called inflation that makes $1,000 not the same as it was 20 years ago, right? Your $1,000 emergency fund 20 years ago, it's not going to cover the same emergencies that may happen today. So I suggest if you take that $1,000 back in, say, 2005 and you adjust it and increase it for inflation, it's going to be more like $1,500 today. So with that in mind, I believe that the initial emergency fund that Dave talks about at $1,000, it should be increased to more like $1,500 or maybe even $2,000 to make up and adjust for inflation. And it would be a more realistic and a safer initial emergency fund for most people. Again, we're talking about mitigating risk here, right? So if we're mitigating risk, we want to increase the emergency fund to keep up with what has happened with inflation. And risk is always something that you want to consider whenever you're dealing with money. Now, number 3, the third thing that I disagree with Dave about is Dave says to stop all investing while you're in baby step number 2, while you're trying to get out of debt. Dave says, don't contribute to your 401k at your job. Don't contribute additional money or any money towards any investments in the stock market. And I respectfully disagree with Dave Ramsey on that point. Look, if your job offers you a 401k and they have a match to the 401k, you need to still get that match, even though you may be trying to be in baby step number 2 and get out of debt. Now, if your company doesn't offer a match, I still say you want to be investing 3 to 5% of your money into the stock market, even when you're trying to get out of debt. Hey, listen, I want you to get out of bad debt. I really do. I think you want to get rid of your bad debt as soon as possible. Now, bad debt being debt on things that are going down in value, right? Anything that's depreciating or is not appreciating, you want to get rid of that debt as soon as possible. But on the other hand, I don't want you to miss time in the stock market. Now, Dave says, go ahead and get gazelle intense so you can get out of baby step 2 as soon as you can so that you can go back and invest money in baby step number 3. But listen, guys, sometimes life gets in the way. Sometimes those 2 or 3 years you were planning to get out of debt and you stop investing in your job's 401k turns into 4 or 5 or 6 years. And if you're not careful, you'll be out of the stock market that whole 3, 4, 5 or 6 years. And you really don't want to be out of the stock market and not investing money in that time frame. Because hey guys, unforeseen emergencies and things come up in life. I don't want you losing money that you could have been gaining compound interest on the whole time because you jumped out of the market to get intense with your debt, and then something went wrong and you didn't pay off the debt and you've been out of the market for those 3 or 4 or 5 years. I don't want you to completely jump out of investing in the stock market while you pay off your debt. Now, let me clarify. I'm not saying while you're trying to get out of debt, you go ahead and invest 10 or 15 or 20% of your money towards your investing while you're still in debt. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying still be getting at least the match from your job. And also, if your job doesn't offer a match, still be putting in a small percentage, 3 to 5% of your money, even while you're trying to get out of debt in an intense fashion, right? You can be intentional and focused on getting out of debt and still be putting 3 to 5% of your money towards your job's 401k or towards some outside investing in the stock market. You can do both at the same time. Now, it may take you a little bit longer to get out of your debt, but guys, lobbing more money at the stock market those 3 or 4 years later when you get out of debt won't always make up for the missed time in the market if you decide to stop investing altogether. Now, number 4, the fourth thing that I sort of disagree and want to push back on in terms of what Dave talks about on a regular basis is mutual funds. Now, Dave says you should be investing in good growth mutual funds. And me, I suggest index funds over mutual funds. Now, listen, guys. Index funds are just a type of mutual fund. But Dave Ramsey suggests that you should be investing 15% of your money in the traditional mutual funds that are actively managed. And I suggest that you should be investing that money in more passively managed low-cost index funds that simply track an index. And here's why, guys. Index funds are not actively managed, right? Mutual funds, actively managed. Index funds, not actively managed. Guys, think of mutual funds like a bucket full of stocks. With a traditional mutual fund that Dave Ramsey suggests, there may be several fund managers who make lots of money who are choosing what stocks to go into the bucket called a mutual fund. However, with index funds, there may be 1 or 2 index fund managers to pick stocks that are going to go in the bucket called an index fund, because the bucket of index funds are already predetermined and the bucket is simply following a sector of the market or following and tracking a group of stocks that are in that index fund. And none of the index fund managers have to pick and choose what goes in that bucket called an index fund on a regular basis. They don't have to choose it. So it's more passively managed than a mutual fund where the managers of the fund are actually researching and figuring out which stocks to go in the bucket and which stocks to not go in the bucket. So the fees for the index fund are much lower typically than the actively managed mutual fund, right? Index funds are more set it and forget it. So there's generally a little bit less risk involved with index funds. There's lower fees with index funds. And when you read study after study after study, it shows that over the long haul, index funds outperform mutual funds. Look, I like Dave. I respect Dave tremendously, but I don't agree with everything Dave says, just like Dave Ramsey wouldn't agree with everything that I say. But just because we don't agree on every single thing doesn't mean I don't like or respect the work that Dave Ramsey has put in. He's got a large following and talks to millions of people every single day for a reason. And anyone who has helped millions of people over 20 or 30 years change their generational wealth, I gotta respect that and realize that a lot of what he says is pretty accurate and pretty right. Guys, one thing to think about in terms of money is that ultimately, guys, personal finance is personal. And sometimes the one-size-fits-all approach that you may get on the internet or in social media or on the radio or TV, sometimes that approach is not right for everybody and every situation. Sure, there's some absolutes when it comes to money, but we got to remember everyone and everyone's situation is a little bit different. So guys, those are my 4 things that I disagree with Dave about. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Guys, drop that comment below and let me know. your thoughts on Dave Ramsey's money advice and on these 4 things that I talked about in this video that I disagree with Dave about. Let me know below in the comments. If you got anything at all out of this video, do me a favor, smash that like button for me. Please share this video with your friends, your family, and your network of good people. Below in the description box, grab your 24 Laws of Money free ebook, a gift from me to you. Those are the 24 principles that help me build my wealth and reach my financial freedom. Hey, the best person to take care of the old you is the young you. Take good care of yourself and take care of other people. Until the next video, peace.